Come on, bitch, let's go. Come on, get ready, bitches. You haven't seen nothing yet. Come on.
Valentino, Versace, Lamborghini, Bugatti. I got money to burn. I'm single and I'm naughty.
Come on.
Tiffany's, Cartier, Gucci, Armani.
Come on.
Break out your black card, boys. It's time to party.
So it's been a pretty tumultuous week for the United States for multiple reasons, mainly because we've had yet another disaster. It's been a little tough this year for us as a community, United States, right? So we're struggling with a few things. We've got a change in administration, which is going to be a little challenging because one administration's very different than the other. We've got the justice system being called into question. We've got 170 million people being cut off of TikTok because behind it is China. And it has to be done, but it's also going to impact the lives of these influencers that have made money off of TikTok and spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in doing it. And obviously, if TikTok had nothing to hide, they would have already sold it for billions of dollars. But they don't want us to get into their, what's in the deep, dark depths of your closet, TikTok, which is China. So that's why they won't ever sell it, because they don't want us to know that. I also found it funny that they were paying people to join TikTok knowing that they're being shut down. To me, it seemed like a last hurrah to try to get data off people before they know they're gonna have to go. Believe me, if TikTok was just strictly for capitalist reasons, they would have sold it and made a ton of money. And the guys would have gone on and left Singapore and went and partied out in, some lavish place like Abu Dhabi or otherwise. Anyway, there's been a lot happening. Probably the most dramatic thing that you guys automatically thought I was talking about besides this is the Bourbon terrorist attack, the Cybertruck explosion in front of Trump International Tower, the fires, not just one fire, but like 5, maybe 6 fires in Los Angeles. One set by an arsonist, maybe. Yeah, somebody intentionally may have set a fire off. And then, of course, there's all the other, drama that we've had happen. I don't want to leave anybody out. We've had hurricanes. We've had snowstorms that have never been this awful and, temperatures that have never been colder. I think in Europe, people are dying from the cold. We've had floods that have never happened before. How could I leave out Spain and all this, actually? Let's go international. We've had floods that have taken out communities that have never had floods like this before. It's not been great. Now, one good thing, though, is that I have been through 3 different catastrophes this year. No, 4 disasters this year myself. And I've become a little bit of an expert on disasters and how to deal with not getting screwed by the insurance companies or vendors in the disaster space, which is no small feat. Now, this is not the show today, okay? The main show today is I've got some tea about Joe Giudice I want to share with you that kind of shocked me. And then I want to talk to you about some Southern Charm tea I got sent. And the main show today, which I'm really proud to do with you, is that I got Jonathan Schwarz on the show. Now, Jonathan Schwarz is a controversial character. He's had a career that was extraordinary until it wasn't. And he has been intimately integrated into most things that you've heard and talked about. He represented Ray J during the sex tape scandal. He was the financial advisor to Mariah Carey and Beyoncé. He, in fact, was the person who originally registered the copyright for Blue Ivy's name to be used and protected on products and all the wonderful things that Blue Ivy with her talent are going to do. But, it fell apart because he ended up going to prison, sentenced to 6 years, served a little less. We'll get into that in a minute later in the show. And that copyright went to somebody else who was managing it, and they didn't, keep up with what they were supposed to. And then a company that had the name of Blue Ivy for years and years and years before Blue Ivy was born, managed to get their hands back on it again, and now Blue Ivy's not able to do products with her name, which obviously is a problem when you're Beyonce's child. But he was one of the guys who actually came up with the idea in the first place to copyright Blue Ivy, and then it went petong with someone else. He was Chester Bennington's trustee over his will for his children. He actually was the person that, did that for Linkin Park. He worked with Linkin Park for a while. I mean, the list of clients and A-listers he worked with goes on, and he also was with GSO Business Management, which is considered, one of the larger business management companies in the country for entertainment industry A-listers. And so, he had access, and he was working under some icons on the business side of Hollywood as well, who were his mentors. Well, we're going to hear all his stories today. He did end up going to prison because at a certain point he becomes addicted to drugs and gambling. He loses money. He gets more and more unhinged. And, he ends up stealing $4.6 million in a very public case with Alanis Morrissette, who, by the way, he cared about. But, he got caught up in the game and the racket and the drugs and the gambling. And Alanis Morrissette and some of his other clients got damaged because of it, because he stopped worrying about them like he was supposed to and worrying about hiding his lies, his secrets. And like many people in Hollywood, your life gets away from you. Not the first time. 100 people I've told stories about that this has happened to. But what we don't do on my channel is judge people because, as I always say, nobody's perfect. Life is not black or white. It's gray. People have their big, great moments, their Mother Teresa moments, and they have also their very, very dark, bad moments. Maybe not everybody can see them, though, because they hide it real good. Anyway, I don't size people up by probably what most people do, which is their good deeds or their bad deeds. I size them up by the epic life that they live, whatever that is. That you make mistakes. I don't think, that person made a ton of mistakes. I don't look up to that person. I'm like, what an interesting life. Let me learn from what they did. If someone is extraordinarily good at something, I'm like, let me look at how he's extraordinarily good. He may be an awful person. I have to tell you, most extraordinary people are awful people. We've got to remember that. I know people hate to believe it, but it's true. The most successful, even in our reality TV industry, are the most awful people. That's what you love to watch. So today we're going to get into it with Jonathan, and he's going to tell me so many good stories, and you're going to hear them. And he's such a positive person now that he's been through all this torture of 6 years in prison and all the things he had to go to be punished for what he did, that I almost wanted to set him free of it in a way. I was like, I forgive you for what you did. So, you have amazing stories. Share them because I forgive you. You don't have to convince me to forgive you. I forgive you. All right, so just a few things I want to get out of the way before we get going on Real Housewives of Potomac. Some people were wondering, why is Karen Huger not going to be at the reunion because they released the seating chart? And would you believe, no Karen. She was the subject of most of the season, Real Housewives of Potomac people will tell you. What is happening? Well, what's happening is Karen Huger has gone off to rehab. And I'd say it was a pretty good idea for her to skip the reunion and go to rehab instead, because when she goes in front of the judge for sentencing while she's in the process of appealing, if that's what she decides to do, and they can find a legal merit in order to do so, which is not a slam dunk, by the way, she is going to have to look this judge in the face. And if Robin Dixon wasn't lying, and she truly has 4 DUIs and not just, one other DUI, that's a pretty serious thing. And he's going to realize that she hasn't taken any accountability, not on the TV show saying she's going to be vindicated throughout the whole season, not in the press, no place really, not even in the courtroom at this point, and her arguments that she's put forth. So the judge is going to really want to throw the book at her because part of, a good outcome on your sentencing is remorse. Well, she hasn't shown it. So her lawyer was like, look, Karen, if you don't go to rehab and show this judge that you're trying to self-correct after the amount of mistakes you've had driving a vehicle under the influence where you could have killed yourself and other people, and talking to Thomas Jefferson being his concubine on the police cam, you like went back in time somehow and created your own, I don't know, movie of yourself as Thomas Jefferson's mistress. Or, I mean, it was so random. But there it is, right? I mean, she's living out some sort of movie in her head about her estate, I think. That's where I think that came from. It sounds so crazy. You sound like you need to be institutionalized in prison, in a mental home, I don't know what. So her attorney was like, if you don't show this judge that you're willing to self-correct and that you're seeking help that you obviously need, then this judge is going to have no choice but to punish you to the extremities of the law and put you in a position where you will sober up good and put you in a forced rehab program and all these things. And I think he was afraid of what Karen would say at the reunion in the interview process, that she might further incriminate herself or show that she, even more so than she already has no remorse. And then the judge would really go bad and she could end up like a year in prison. I mean, repetitive DUIs, even one repetitive DUI is bad. Really bad. So that was her angle on that. And I think it'll work. She'll probably get a much lighter punishment because she did that. Now let's move on to some Southern charm tea, I was told. Okay, number one, Shep said at his live show to some of the people that were there, the fans, that Craig is okay. He's not dying over Paige. Like, we knew that because of the, he was in Aspen and all that. And I talked about that last week, I think it was. But like, from Shep's perspective, all is well. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it came out that Shep and Whitney are still occasionally getting together with Thomas Ravenel because Thomas lives 4 hours away. So they still have some relationship with Thomas Ravenel, which is kind of interesting if you put it in the context of Catherine not being on the show anymore, besides the fact that she was struggling with drug and alcohol addiction issues. Of course, I'm talking about Catherine Dennis, who used to be on Southern Charm. Now, some other really interesting things that came out of this live with Shep was that Whitney is the producer of Southern Charm. So all this time, I'm thinking it's Patricia Alshul, who's the secret producer, if you will, of Southern Charm. And the real producer is Whitney. Whitney Sudler Smith talked about how he kind of packaged the show and got the idea for the show. And his first hire, I think, was Thomas Ravenel, and his second hire ended up being Shep. And then they casted the rest of the group after Shep. He's the second person they hired. But that was Whitney who did that casting. It was like all about Whitney. So here's Whitney, like this silent character on the show. Like sometimes, some things happen with him, but he's sort of off to the side and we think he's not that important of a character, but he's actually the most important character because he's the producer. Like, it blew my mind. He's like a stealth bomber, that guy. Also, turns out Whitney plays guitar and amazingly well and can jam out. And I think where the idea of Southern Charm really emerged were two trust fund kids saying it would be a really cool idea to bring this legit core rich kid group together in Charleston and see all the drama that, happens because we're like messy. It's a small town. We have too much money. We don't have to work that hard. And like, what happens? And so that's really where it started. So I thought that was kind of wild. Also, Whitney admitted that back when he was young, he dated Kelly Bensimon from Real Housewives of New York. And I thought that was she gets around. That girl's dated a few people. Kelly, you've been around. Kelly was going to be interviewed with me and we probably would have become friendly, but I don't know. I think Bravo told her no because she reached out to me and then she ghosted me after I said, yeah, let's do a show. Weird. She shouldn't have done that. I'm such a good time, you guys, right? You should tell her I'm a friend you want to have. So some people at my request tried to get some feelers out about JT and whether or not he was telling the truth and whether or not like this new relationship with this girl is real. Well, we couldn't get that tea, but what we did find out when we were poking around in that direction was that JT had been making up storylines, which was upsetting some of the core cast members because they felt like it doesn't need to be done. Like eventually, always the real drama comes out, and that real drama is always way better than fabricated drama. And that JT was like really trying to kind of become the center of a season. That this is what the OG cast felt, and that he was trying almost too hard and he was making things up in order to be in this drama, and it backfired on him in a way that he never could even like foresee. And that's why he quit the show. And he didn't feel like it was like he was being supported, and he just like it became like a snowball and got away from him. And Shep made it clear that if JT wanted to come back to the show, that he would be happy to shoot with him, and that he kind of sensed that the other characters iced JT out, which is why JT felt like he had to quit. So this was some interesting juice for you. I think it's really important with this new tea that I have to, I think, say out loud that if Southern Charm wants to stay awesome, they need to continuously seek what was the foundation of the show in the first place, which is, you know, these really strange Charleston people, no matter what age they are. I know Bravo keeps trying to like go young because there's that great audience to tap for selling things and stuff. But like what's really good TV is whatever age they are, bring them in if they're trust fund families or kids or, wealthy eccentrics or ex-wives. Like that is going to make that show amazing. And trying to like shove it in a certain age group area is a mistake because older people date young people, as we've seen with Catherine and Thomas. And like Patricia, who's, sort of the matriarch of the group, and she's much older, is very interesting to watch from time to time and creates a lot of drama by putting the younger kids in their place and not, dealing with their nonsense. And then, of course, there's like the middle-aged type people where they're trying to figure their things out, and then the young, happy-go-lucky people that don't like have a care in the world and they're just messy. I do think it's a mistake to go off their original formula because that formula worked. It worked. There were just messy, bratty people, and that was fun to watch. By the way, I know a ton of rich people that live in New Orleans that are the same as the Charleston type group. They're like these rich, over-the-top trust fund, like from the ages of like 28 to 50, old school kind of Southern debutante people that like really exist like that and do balls and all this stuff all the time. And they're so weird. And they would make a great show. They should just do another one. I remember my friends always wanted me to come down for this ball about a zoo. Like there's some zoo there. They do these fancy balls. It's very expensive. And like you buy these over the top gowns and go, I wonder if they still do them. I got to get back into this scene. What am I doing? I'm like always in a room by myself doing shows. All right. Oh, by the way, they are definitely shooting a Real Housewives of Long Island right now. Whether or not it'll ultimately get picked up, I don't know, but they are. And in the Patreon is where they're doing it if you want to go look in Long Island. And you should apply. I'm sure it's Shed casting it if you live there. So let's talk about Real Housewives of New Jersey. It's official. Jen Aydin's canceled. I mean, I tried. I posted her apology on my Instagram. You guys said her apology was crap. It wasn't an apology. And you were like, she's effed. Cancel her. And I was like, okay. So that's that. She's done. There's nothing more to say on that front. And I love how her husband comes out, Bill Aydin, and like throws her under the bus. He's like, I told her not to post those videos. I'm like, instead of Bill Aydin riding in on his like horse to save Jen Aydin, no, he comes in and he like pushes her in front of the car so she gets run over. Doesn't try to pull her away from the car. shoves her right in front of it. Unreal, these people. God, maybe he's the problem. Maybe she wouldn't be so miserable if he just dump him. Okay, so let's see. What else we got? Oh, yeah, Joe Giudice. Okay, so I was just screwing around, okay? And there has been some weird tea that you guys won't care about unless you're like deep like we do in the Patreon, which is that Rusty Ram, who was an associate of DMS's new Louis Ruelas, did the warrior camp with Garrett White. He was even in an article, as like the poster boy for Warrior Camp back in 2017. Warrior Camp, by the way, is that weird video where Louis Ruelas looks naked on a beach and he's begging some woman to forgive him and then marry him. That video. Well, that's Warrior Camp. So this guy, Rusty Ram, gets indicted for this massive fraud. Again, same fraud as Jen Shah from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, targeting vulnerable people in like a magazine subscription scam. Big shocker. And he ends up getting his sentencing and he gets 10 years in prison. This was just a few days ago. And I don't know, it got me on a tip. I thought, let me go look at Joe Giudice's feed, see what he's up to. So he, in this feed, gives a tour of his quote unquote house with his daughter. And I was like, oh, good for him. Let's see how he was living. Because he was living in a very small apartment when he first moved to the Bahamas. It was like very small and rough. Like it was not nice. Okay, I'm not going to be like mean because the guy had everything stacked up against him. But like he was definitely starting from ground zero. And then all of a sudden I see this video and I'm like, oh, that's nice. They're like showing off his house. Maybe, he moved to a better place, whatever. Well, it gets weird because the way that his daughter, I think it's Gia, doing the video, and he's taking her on the tour, but the way they're presenting it is this is his house. And like she's taking him through it and she's like, this is your bedroom and this is the furniture and there's this random picture of Paris and all this stuff. And then as they're leaving, they're like, well, we're getting ready to leave. And they're doing lots of cleaning. And I was like, what does she mean by that? And then I looked it up and his house in the Caribbean is not a house. It's a 3-bedroom hotel and it's about, $239 a night USD. It's like $7,000 a month. So my first thought is, first of all, thank you, Teresa Giudice, for paying my restitution. Joe Giudice might think every single day because he's able to save up enough money and be allowed to live in a $7,000 house because he couldn't do that with the restitution payment, which, by the way, Teresa allegedly is paying all of it herself. So he wouldn't be generally allowed to have a $7,000 a month place. But secondly, I'm like, it's not a house that you rented long term. It's not a house you bought. Obviously, it's a hotel. So I'm like, why are they presenting this hotel like it's his home? Like he's always there. If he is always there, he's paying $7,000 a month. And it wasn't a promo where they're bartering because they didn't say the name. I figured it out because of something she said in the video. It was just really bizarre to me. The whole thing didn't make any sense. And so I'm going to play you the sound clip of this tour. And then I'm going to tell you about this house so you can do your own due diligence. But like, what is going on here? Very unusual for sure. So this is really bizarre. Strange twist. Let me play for you, and then we'll get into the proper show.
So we have a few people interested in where I live. Anyway, we're going to go on a little house tour. This is where I live. This is where all my kids come, enjoy the beach during the day. I used to live over there a couple of years back. Yeah, we still enjoy the same beach, so nothing's changed as far as beach goes. Come on, let's go. We'll take a walk this way. I'm literally like 30 seconds from the beach, which makes my spot that much better. The bad thing about it is that you got to climb to the 3rd floor, but it's okay. This is the canal that runs into my place.
Oh my God, it's a dolphin! Going into the Sandy Ford development, you see so many different sea animals in this canal.
If we were upstairs, we'd be able to see everything.
Oh, 100%.
So anyway, I just saw a dolphin, which is rare. I never see a dolphin. I see everything but a dolphin. That was so cool. So I'm literally on the 3rd floor right there.
The front porch, cute little blue door. Always gotta wash your feet off after leaving the beach. Okay, now welcome to our home. This is the grand foyer.
Melania's undone bed.
No,
She's doing laundry.
we'll show the beds after. Can you walk in? You have this pineapple pitcher. Then you make a left, and this is the kitchen.
This is all good food is made.
This is our kitchen, laundry room. Hey guys. This is the first full bath, shower, the first bedroom. Super cute beach themed. But then a random picture of Paris. Here we have pictures of the family and random knickknacks. Dad, you're supposed to be doing this house tour. All right, Dad, now we have our dining area.
Kitchen,
Bedroom,
bathroom, closets, little dining TV room or whatever you want to call it.
This is our living room. For the holiday season, he has his mini Christmas tree.
Yeah.
His apartment.
We got 2 bedrooms upstairs, we got a bath, we got a office, and then this is the best part of the whole house.
Coming outside, my dad has a huge deck. We're in cleaning mode because we're leaving today. All the carpets are being cleaned, grill, his workout stations, and yeah, this is what we look at.
And we got the master bedroom, bathroom.
This house has 3 bathrooms, 4 bedrooms.
Nothing special, but it works.
This is my dad's room.
Walk-in closet.
Walk-in closet right here. And this is his master bath.
So what's really bizarre about this whole thing is that the furniture and all the stuff is the hotels. And yes, he added Christmas decorations and like a few bits and bobs that are definitely Joe's, like his punching bag, etc. So he's definitely stayed there for a period of time, or he's staging it like he did, right? Because he has his punching bag, which is a staple on his social media. But it is a hotel. Like, it's not a hotel. It's a hotel. Okay, so Sandy Port Beach Resort is made up of hotel rooms that are different types of hotel rooms. The one that Joe has is called the Grand Canal Deluxe Suites. And you can see the furniture exactly matches what he has. And those only go up to 3 bedrooms. In fact, I looked and I couldn't find any 4 bedrooms on the property. So I really tried to find a 4-bedroom because he's like, I live in a 4-bedroom house here in this place. And there is no 4-bedroom. So where's this 4-bedroom coming from? I don't mean to be repetitive, but it doesn't exist. Their biggest is 3-bedroom. So that was not correct. And then when you go to the Grand Canal Deluxe Suites, they have 3 bedrooms. Those go for all the way up to $279 a night during high season, which is when he's there. It's high season now. So I was like, wow, that's kind of expensive, right? He's paying upwards of $7,000 a month, or $5,000 to $7,000 a month for this place if he's actually living there in the way they're depicting it as his home. And it just was really strange because actually none of the stuff that they're depicting kind of as his is his. It's all the hotels. And then there were just a few things put in there that were Joe's that we could see. So, I mean, either he's come into some money and he's living at a hotel extensively long term, or, they went there for a stay for the holiday and they presented it like it's where he lives. I don't know. It's really bizarre, but I'll leave it with you guys to consider. And I don't know why he said 4 bedrooms because the biggest is 3. Maybe they're trying to do inspirational posts to help Joe Giudice's following, although he has a big following, so it's very strange. I'll leave it with you. Oh my gosh, Jonathan, I am so glad you agreed to come on the show today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. And I'm very excited to talk to you as well. So thank you for having me on.
Well, for the people who don't know who you are, Jonathan Schwartz, he was really involved with the management of a lot of iconic stars for a long period of time. And you were sort of embroiled in a lot of pop culture things that have come up over, the last, let's say 10 years of stuff. Some good, some bad. I'll let you tell a little more about that yourself, right? But you worked with Beyonce. You worked with Gwyneth Paltrow. You worked with Mariah Carey. I mean, in fact, you were even involved with the whole Blue Ivy trademark scandal that's been the talk of the town lately because it's kind of reemerged again with Beyonce, which I'm dying to get your take on that. Linkin Park, you worked with Chester Bennington. You were a trustee for him at one point before he passed away. You were managing his will. I mean, you are so in the thick of everything.
You know, the beauty of that is for someone like me, I was not enamored, with celebrities. I was the business manager, aside from what I did, which was wrong, and we'll get to it later, who really cared about them and viewed them as a human. They put socks on the same way I put socks on. They put shoes on the same way we put shoes on. And I was not a yes business manager. I knew how to say no. And I told them that when they decided to come to me, that if you want a yes business manager, that's not me. And I treated them like I would treat anybody, like a human being. And I didn't put them up on a pedestal because frankly, they're not. Just because they're in the celebrity, in the eyes of so many people, that doesn't make them different than you and me.
I mean, it must have been very intimidating, though, trying to give advice to Mariah Carey. Like, I'm trying to imagine that meeting. Like, what was that like?
Well, it's funny you ask because, the very first meeting I had with Mariah, I received a call. At that time, I lived in Agora Hills. She was in Calabasas. I received a call from her manager saying, "Hey, Mariah's ready to meet you. Can you come?" And this is at midnight. So I'm like, sure, this is Mariah Carey. So I get in the car, I get to the house, Mariah opens the door. She's kind of looks like she's tired. I'm not quite sure, low energy. She takes me into the kitchen. We sit at the table. She offers me a glass of wine. We share a glass of wine. And then all of a sudden, Mariah starts to sing acoustically. And it was like so surreal. It was just so beautiful. She's singing, I believe it was a Lionel Richie song. And I'm sitting there going, wow, this is definitely the first time, that I experienced something like that. And it's Mariah. I mean, how do you not love Mariah's voice? And so we talked, we kibitzed a little bit, if you will. And ultimately, the next day she hired me. And, it wasn't at the best time of her life. This is where, she did that New Year's Eve show, in New York, and it was a flop. But I'm glad to hear, I don't know directly, I don't speak to her anymore. I don't speak to any of my former clients. But I'm really happy to see her healthy again and successful again because she's a beautiful woman inside. And I really enjoyed working with her.
Yeah, well, a lot of things came out to do with Mariah. It came out later that Matola had abused her and done awful things, and she felt like she was being trapped. And so she was dealing with some of that, and she's had huge family, dynamics to deal with. I think her sister was like in a cult and then she passed away, or I don't know. There's so much around that. So, I mean, it hasn't been an easy ride for Mariah. The fact that she's, has this talent that just transcends everything, is why I think she'll always be on top, right? No matter what happens to her. But it must have been intimidating. Did you guys ever do anything socially, or you weren't allowed because you're her business manager? I've always wondered.
It's a great question. I was one of the business managers that my style was, what? There's a time for professionalism, but there's also a time to really get to know each client intimately. So I did spend time socially, within the right boundaries with my clients. Mariah, for example, and Beyonce both came to a foundation that I started. It was called at the time Heartview Global Foundation, which was essentially because I have a coronary artery. I have a unique story about how that was detected. But what happened was I invited them and they showed up because we were all like a family. I really treated my clients like a family. I really cared for them. And I know a lot of listeners might say, how can you care for someone yet you embezzled from so many people? And not these, a lot of clients I didn't embezzle from, but, that's a fair statement. I asked myself that question for a long time. How did I violate the fiduciary responsibility that I had for some of these clients? And I realized today why I did what I did, and I'm certainly not proud of it. I own it. I take full responsibility for my poor choices, but I really cared deeply for my clients, some of whom I did embezzle money from, and the others who I didn't. So we were really close, the clients and I. Linkin Park came to my son's bar mitzvah, and Chester sang, happy birthday to him. I mean, I was really fortunate to have, really special clients that I cared for deeply, and that they knew me and my family, my 3 kids and my ex-wife. And it was just a unique situation that, most of my peers didn't have that relationship with their clients, but I did.
Well, you must have been shocked. I know that you served, 6 years in prison? Is that right?
So in May of 2017, I was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. And that's a whole interesting thing in and of itself. The sentencing was really challenging. sitting on the federal side was my ex-wife and my middle son, and that was really painful to see. I was hoping for no more than 5 years. I did a plea agreement for 4 to 6 years, and the judge just felt, and I think her quote was, "Due to the audaciousness of your crime, I'm going to give you the extra year, even though the prosecutor suggested 5." So yes, I was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison,
Jeez.
and I served about 33 months in federal prison because I took the residential drug and alcohol program, which took a year off my sentence. And it was also during COVID. So I was released early for COVID because of my coronary artery disease. And I had to do 16 months on home confinement, which was awful. And then I just finished 3 years of probation. So I gave the government over 8.5 years of my life. But again, it could have been worse. My crime was heinous. And, I don't regret that the judge gave me 6 years. I respect her decision. I didn't respect it in the beginning because I still had a high ego. But in recovery, I've learned to surrender my ego. And I think I practice a lot with more humility today. And so I look back on that as I wish it was a shorter sentence. But you know what, Mike, that was the sentence for my crime that I accept.
Well, I always tell everybody people don't understand how the justice system works until they're in it. It doesn't work anything like people think. And then, the punishment is forever, no matter what anyone says, between, restitution and being civilly dead and all the other attributes that carries with it. Now, so many people have felonies and misdemeanors. It's not like, it was 20 years ago. You were also like a pariah 20 years ago. Now it's not that way. Because so many people have one. I mean, let's face it, the president has one. It is forever. And the crime, no matter, unless it's violent, frankly, is always, I think, not equal to the punishment in America. America is like lethal with their punishments. It's mind-blowing. It's breathtaking, I should say. But I brought that up because I was wondering if when you got out and you started to see the difference with the way that celebrities are perceived, how that impacted you. So for example, in the old days, celebrities were perceived as perfection. Nobody knew their scandals. They couldn't do any step wrong, etc. Right? Flash forward. Okay. That's when before you go to prison. You come out of prison and now, there are things coming out like they're saying that Diddy is a sex trafficker and he would have been somebody held up on a pedestal before you went into prison. Everybody going to the Diddy parties. I went to them in the Hamptons. Now people are distancing themselves from even saying they went to the parties. Got people saying that Jay-Z now is involved, although he's about to get that case dismissed, that, he R-worded a 13-year-old. You've got Beyonce in the middle of all that chaos and people trying, I think Azealia was the one who said she was a practicing witch and all this stuff. It's such a different climate. And I just wanted to know what your take was on that.
All I can speak about is from my experience with both Beyonce and Jay. And I got to tell you, Beyonce, I'll bring you back to the Lemonade tour, 2016, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere around that time, where she was rehearsing in Tampa Bay. I have the utmost respect for Beyonce, and I say that, with great sincerity. She is a perfectionist. My role there was to improve the profit margin of every tour. That was my role with most every artist when they were going on the road. Like, what's your profit margin going to be? And, she was constantly like rehearsing, dozens of times each song. Her work ethic is second to none. She's the first one at rehearsals, the last one to leave. And she does it all for her fans. She has this beehive, which is her Uber fan base. And I just have so much respect for her because most fans don't see the behind the scenes that I was, privy to see. And, she was a pleasure to work with, honestly. When I was in Tampa Bay, as I said, it was just really fun for me to watch her and really be a part of this magic that she puts on for her fans. It's really important that she does that. And the other thing that I respect about her, among many other things that I'll share with you, is that she's a tremendous philanthropist, but nobody knows that by design because she believes, and I subscribe to this, that true philanthropy is done anonymously. This woman gives a lot to multiple charities, and she asks to do it discreetly. And with respect to Jay-Z, quick story there is when she was doing Beyonce her first video for her new album at that time. It was filmed in New Orleans, and I happened to at the time represent a running back with the New Orleans Saints, C.J. Spiller, and I took Jay to the game with me. We sat in the luxury box together, and he was a gentleman. So I know what the media is saying about him. I cannot speak to that, but all I can speak about is my truth of what I've witnessed and my part in their lives. And he was nothing but incredibly kind and receptive. And both Beyonce specifically, I really have nothing to say that's going to like blow someone's mind that's negative. She's an incredible artist who really cares about her fan base.
But wasn't it shocking though that the song was about Jay-Z cheating on her, one of them? Like, I'm just saying, right? Because that's what everybody's going to think when they hear this. They're going to go, but one of the songs was supposedly about Jay-Z cheating on her. So, I mean, how do you deal with those kind of dynamics, like with the public saying things like that?
I think that people can say whatever they want, and they could be right. They're right to feel the way they feel. For me, as we talked about earlier, I was close with all my clients, including Beyonce, and I also knew my boundaries. And when that song came out and the media came out to discuss that, I wasn't going to cross that boundary and get involved. If she wants to share it with me, she could share it with me. But that I'm not going to solicit from her because I'm sure it was a difficult time for her that she had to go through, and for Jay.
Yeah. Yeah, more for Beyonce, I'd say, in that situation. But yeah, for sure. Well, there's been some drama, actually, which I thought maybe you might be able to shine some light on, which is that Beyonce's daughter's name, Blue Ivy, was, supposed to be copyrighted for products and all these things. And I don't know if you know this, but obviously I study social media as part of my job all the time. And one of the big discussion points online right now has been that Beyonce lost the copyright to Blue Ivy's name because she never filed the follow-up stuff that was required to maintain that product copyright. So my question is, like, what would you say now she should do, or what do you think about that?
I would have her. I probably, if I was still in business management, I certainly would have been in touch with her lawyer, her trademark attorney, and why, and even her business manager, why weren't you on top of that? Because Beyonce's paying her professional team money to make sure that things like this don't happen. And the one thing about the modern day artists, including Beyonce and the others I represented, is they're very, very proactive in their affairs, legal and financial. And it surprises me to hear that. And it saddens me to hear that, because it's not Beyonce that likely dropped the ball. It's her professional team that likely dropped the ball. And that's why clients, I encourage them to be proactive in all of their affairs. And yes, it's important to have a great team, and you can rely on the team for the most part. But at the end of the day, be proactive when it comes to your own affairs.
Yeah, well, it was shocking because Blue Ivy's name now is going to be able to be used by this boutique company. It's in a different genre, but they've got the copyright. So
sad. I mean, that's just sad.
Yeah. I know. I remember you were like the head of her company that was doing the products and stuff around that. Like you were going to use that to help her build this sort of empire for Blue Ivy. So I was like, I better let you know that ball got dropped after you weren't able to participate anymore. So let me ask you a question. There's also, in all of the, stuff that goes around now, all these conspiracy theories, et cetera, about Chester Bennington. So I just wanted to get your take about like what he was like as a person. Do you think that something sinister happened to him? Like, what's your take being an insider? Because a lot of people go crazy about Chester Bennington.
A great question. I love Chester and I miss him dearly. I surrendered to prison July 11, 2017. And a week or so after that, someone approached me in prison and said, Chester killed himself. It was already devastating enough. I hadn't yet adjusted. I cried every night for about 6 months in prison, the first 6 months. And then to hear this just took me to a place of darkness. The band right now is going, has a new lead singer. I know that's creating some social media controversy. Like, a lot of people are saying Linkin Park can't be Linkin Park without Chester. Chester's son came out and had some opposition to that decision as well. But here's what I can say about Linkin Park. They were probably the most professional clients, aside from like Beyonce, but in a different way. The first day I met them and they interviewed, they're the ones that launched my career because, I started with them when Hybrid Theory was released in the early 2000s. And that was a group that I saw Play at the Roxy, and from that moment where they played at the Roxy, I believe, or one of those places on Sunset, their career just like they just sold album after album after album, but they treated their music like Apple treats Apple's multinational corporation. They taught me so much, and they helped me so much advance in my career. Individually, I was responsible for each one, but also for every entity they had, whether it was touring, publishing, merchandise, their street team marketing with their LP Underground. These guys to a T were incredibly all about business. You know, I was like, I got on the tour bus for the first time and I'm thinking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I walk in and these guys are playing video games. I'm like, they're nerds. They're absolute. But you know what? They were incredible nerds. And today I'm proud to say that I'm a nerd. And I have nothing but nice things. They're family men. Their families come first. But Chester's dynamic within the band was tough. You know, he was struggling with trauma. He was struggling with substance use. And we were involved, his team, with the band on the first intervention they did. And then the band asked the professional team not to be involved on the second intervention. And he was just, you know, this is, I could talk about this later if you want or now, you know, that's why today I'm an expert in addiction and trauma. And I went to grad school to become a licensed marriage and family therapist with an emphasis in addiction and trauma, because I too experienced both of those things. And I wish Chester, and my message to most men and women today is to be vulnerable, kind of like Brene Brown's version of the courage to be vulnerable. And, you know, had Chester asked for help, perhaps things would have been different. He had a very challenging childhood. And I have great empathy for what he went through. And I am deeply still saddened by it. And I think about him all the time. I mean, I love listening to Linkin Park. It just reminds me of Chester. And, you know, and I trust the band's decision in that they had to make it. I'm sure it wasn't an easy one to replace Chester with this new singer. And she's, you know, she's doing great. She's got a great voice. The band they're geniuses. They're great. But Chester was a trouble man. And I met with Chester about 2 months before I was sentenced. He asked to meet me for lunch. And what I respect about him, he's always honest with me. And he said, Jonathan, you disappointed me. While they weren't direct victims of my white collar crime, you know, I disappointed them because they held me in high regard. I disappointed all my clients. I disappointed a lot of people in the entertainment space. And I own that. And so when Chester asked me, well, did you steal from me? I said, Chester, I didn't, but don't trust me. Okay. The firm is doing an audit of every client. Money was not taken from you. But I appreciate that he had the honesty, the willingness to be honest with me about his concerns about me and his disappointment in me. And he had a right to express that. And, you know, Chester, like I said, he sang at my son's bar mitzvah. I bought one of his cars for my middle son. He was a great man, and he's missed by a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about the trauma. I did do a deep dive of Chester, so I'm familiar with what you're referring to. I did a show on that. I do want to say at this point that GSO, the management company that you work for, was one of the biggest talent management companies in Los Angeles in terms of like their roster. And they did pay back all of the money. I know they sued you too, but they did pay back the money. So the clients didn't really get hurt in the end in that way. They were made whole. I'm sure they made an insurance claim or something to do that or help with that. But I guess, how was that meeting? I wondered always, like, how did GSO sit you down and fire you? Because that must have been the worst meeting of your life. Like, tell me about that. I laugh because you got to laugh. Nothing goes to plan. And I want to also hear, how did you get into drugs? Who got you high for the first time? Can you tell me?
Yeah, great questions. I'm happy to tell you I'm fully transparent today.
For the full scoop, join the Dishing Drama Dana Patreon. The link is in this audio description. It's only $6 a month, and you'll get the best information and tea about the things you care about, and even the things you don't know you care about. What are you waiting for?
I mean,